All right, 49ers Chiefs gets real today. Practice, we'll hear who's available in terms of kickers. Well, who's available in terms of Jordan Mason, Malik Mustafa, guys like that. We'll find out who's healthy and not healthy for the Chiefs, although they're coming off a bye week. They should be pretty good, and as we know, Andy Reid off a bye week is nasty. He's a nasty proposition. All stuff to talk about with Larry Krueger, our buddy. You hear him every Monday night at 6 o'clock, Niners Nightly. You hear him weekly with us. We get him up early. Krug, good morning, brother.
What's up, Krug?
You know, I got to show Murph a little bit more respect from now on because, man, I tuned into that Thursday Nighter, and who was part of the intro? But Brian Murphy. Who did they go to for a little taste of the Bay?
You got to get that
taste of the Bay.
That morning drive. Marcus and me, they've done that now before in other years, and it's funny. They come in here, Larry, they stay for a half hour. They literally use like 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Right.
That's it.
But yeah, they encapsulated your optimism and your you made a good point, which is, you know, it's the worst of times, but wait a second, if they win Thursday night, it could be the best of times.
I know, and they did. Is there anything from that game that's still kind of sticking with you? I mean, it was like a kind of a comprehensive beatdown or almost blowing the lead. What was the bigger takeaway?
Well, I mean, if you want to go positive, I would say O-line, right? I mean, they kept Brock upright. They ran for 228. And Seattle, you know, Mike McDonald has got a pretty good defense. So they were missing some guys. Seattle was, third game in 11 days. So there were some factors there. But I thought the O-line, the much maligned Niner O-line, 228 yards on the ground, and Brock didn't go down once. I think that's pretty good. And then on the negative side, I mean, special teams is a circus, and they've got to solve it. And they're not good enough on defense to just be like, none of these things on the margins really matter. Yeah, they do. They do matter. So who's in your coverage units? Who's your kicker? Who's, you know, all these little things that add up to victories all really matter when you're on the margins.
Yeah, and Larry, last week before that game, I know we talked about the matchup between the defensive line and Kenneth Walker and that run game from the Seattle Seahawks. They were able to bottle up Kenneth Walker for 32 yards on 14 carries. What are your thoughts going into this weekend's matchup with the 49ers D-line versus Kareem Hunt in the backfield?
Well, Kareem Hunt's been so solid. I mean, I'm shocked that he's been able to walk off the street, and 2 weeks in, he's 100 yards. He's a good player, and the Niners have never been able to stop him. They couldn't stop him in Kansas City when he was there. They couldn't stop him in Cleveland. So, yeah, I mean, there's no secrets here. He's not that fast. He's pretty tough. He can catch the ball to the backfield, and you got to go low on him, and you got to wrap up, and you got to bring him to the ground. The Niners, the thing that jumped out to me, guys, 13 missed tackles last week after 29 missed tackles the 2 previous weeks. That, you know, Sorensen's defense is either fatigued or they just got to tackle a whole lot better because you can't miss double-digit tackles 3 weeks in a row.
Right, but I thought it improved. You know, I think to Marcus's point, that I thought they played better against Seattle than they did the previous game, which was the Cardinals' loss, right? Didn't you see something like, because we were starting to say, like, who's Nick Sorensen? What's he all about? But I thought they answered the bell pretty well.
They definitely confused Geno. I mean, at halftime, I think Geno had thrown for like 100 yards. So they did a nice job there. And they did a nice job on Walker, you know, and they really did a decent job on, you know, without Mooney Ward.
Yeah.
You know, Renardo Green, I thought, had really stepped up in his moment. He had maybe the biggest play of the game. I mean, that was a momentum shifter. And DK didn't go off. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think they did some really good things against Seattle, and now this is going to be the ultimate test, right? Reid owns Shanahan. The Chiefs own the Niners. They've beaten them every time during this regime. They've beaten them in 2 Super Bowls. I personally think that the Chiefs have kind of knocked the swagger out of the Niners. And I don't know if it's Greenlaw not being there, but the Niners don't have that same swagger as they had a year ago. So this is a big game. This is a big game to regain swagger, confidence, and just, you know, to be able to kind of look the bully in the eye and say, hey, no more.
Yeah, and Larry, you mentioned Dre Greenlaw not being there. It felt like Travis Kelce found his swagger in the Super Bowl when Dre Greenlaw left the game with an injury. Felt like the 49ers were getting targeted by Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes over the middle. I know we've talked about Devondre Campbell a bunch. Fred Warner, of course, is an all-pro middle linebacker. But how do you think they match up this weekend without Dre Greenlaw against Travis Kelce?
Oh, I mean, it's going to be on, you know, I'm fearful of Andy Reid isolating Campbell in space and making him pay. So that one's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, do the Niners make an adjustment? Do they go with the younger, faster D. Winters? over Campbell. They may have to in this game. But, yeah, I mean, that's a concern. I mean, all this talk about the 49ers, this and that, what they've lost, what they've really just lost is Dre Greenlaw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that you should think about all of what the Niners, what ails them. They don't have that swagger on D. They don't have that intimidation factor. It's all Greenlaw. If you just put Greenlaw back out there, I think it would help quite a bit. But that's kind of the question that Lynch has got to tackle between now and the trade deadline is, do you wait for Greenlaw, who may take until middle of December, or do you try to add another linebacker to make yourself better between now and then?
Always good to talk to Larry Krueger, talking football, talking 49ers Chiefs. You hear him every night at 6 o'clock. Niners Nightly. You're listening to KNBR AM and KNBR FM, San Francisco, the sports leader, Cumulus Media Station. A little bit on the Niner run game, Larry. You know it. I'm wearing my Run the Damn Ball every Friday. I'll be wearing it this Friday. But here's the question. Should you run the damn ball if you don't have Jordan Mason? Now, this will be a big week. We're going to be speculating on a Wednesday. We'll have more information by game time Sunday. Let's go with the Mason can't play scenario. Leaves you Garendo, Patrick Taylor, Debo Samuel. Would the run game be in crisis mode for you, or do you like any of that?
Well, I mean, I think it is what it is, which is, Debo has been very unlike Debo as a running back this year. He's just not getting the big yardage, but I think you got to go to him for a few carries because he has the potential to be dynamic. You got to make sure Garendo gets a dozen touches. I mean, it's going to be like, 2 yards, tackle for a loss, 2 yards, tackle for a loss, 50-yard run. It's going to be that kind of a usage. And I think Taylor proved that he can do it, man. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got a nice little run game to him. He takes some hits because he runs upright, but he's a veteran. He won't fumble. So maybe Keyshawn Vaughn off the practice squad maybe gets the promotion. Other than that, I think you've kind of broke it down there. To me, this is the game. This is the game in a nutshell. Why? Because the Niners are third in the NFL. They average 158 yards on the ground. The Chiefs shut down everybody's run game. They're giving up 88 yards on the ground. They shut down Henry, Moss, Bijan, Dobbins, Kamara last week. Nick Bolton's a monster. So if the Niners can run it, they will have done what no other team has done this year against Kansas City.
Yeah, and we know that Kansas City Chiefs defense is led by Chris Jones right in the middle of that defensive line. Big test this weekend for the rookie Dominic Pooney, but also a big test in general for Jake Brendo and Aaron Banks. So how do you think that matchup plays out with Chris Jones in the middle of that defensive line?
Yeah, very scary. I mean, Chris Jones has just been so dominating for so long. And Niners fans look at Chris Jones and they see Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Mean Joe Green, all rolled into one. I mean, this guy is just so dominating, and he's big at big moments. It's sick. When I looked it up this week, the 49ers traded with Kansas City in the 2016 draft. Niners traded up from 37 to 28 to take Joshua Garnett. The Chiefs dropped back to 37 to take Chris Jones.
Yeah. It
didn't work out too well for Trent Baalke.
Yeah, there's draft haunting. There's Solomon Thomas over Pat Mahomes when they still needed a quarterback. And then, of course, a random one is Vance McDonald over Travis Kelce. But I don't know. That's getting deep into it. Josh Dubois of the AP had all those stats. Krug, where are you with Mahomes? I mean, we've been talking about him all week as just maybe the biggest single villain in Bay Area sport in terms of like slaying dreams. We can't come up with somebody who's single-handedly slayed more Bay Area dreams. I mean, people brought up the rally monkey or LeBron got the Warriors once. I mean, the '90s Cowboys. Maybe Aikman and that crew, but the Niners got them. The Niners have never gotten Pat Mahomes. Where are you with Mahomes? Is he Brady? Is he Montana? Is he where? And where does he rank for you in the Bay Area ghost lore?
I mean, he's right. He's right at the top. I mean, when I think of Bay Area killers, I always think back to the 70s and guys like Ron Say,
Steve Garvey.
Steve Garvey, Ron Say, Dale Murphy, dominated the Giants for so many years. I think of so many people against the Giants, but yeah, I mean, it's the New York Giants, in 90, it's the Cowboys in 92. They have not been able to beat Mahomes. I mean, he absolutely owns them. He owns them. Reed owns Shanahan, and it's got to change. But yeah, I got a healthy dose of respect. I met Patrick Mahomes coming out of the draft because I'm friends with Lee Steinberg, and he's like, oh, you got to get him on. So we had him on the show on KNBR. I think he was in the draft the year after the the Super Bowl was hosted in San Francisco. So he came to the Moscone Center, and we did an interview with him, and he was a totally engaging, nice kid. And Lee's like, oh, this kid's going to be great. But you know what? He fooled everybody because he played at Texas Tech, and they had a losing record, and and he put up gaudy stats, but it was Texas Tech. So, yeah, he's a great player. He's an incredible competitor. You can feel it's like, can any of these games end with him not having the ball in his hands?
I know, right? Oh my God!
Would it be possible to maybe just, I don't know, finish on offense and let their defense be out there at the end? It's like we always have to see him at the end. He's so great. And you know what he does that Brock does also? They don't run, and then you give them a lane in the fourth quarter with the money on the table, and they run, and they get the first down, and they convert.
Yeah, and Larry, the only time we've seen this guy lose in the Super Bowl is when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to put that pressure on him. Now, I know they have a different offensive line, and it's hard to get pressure against this offensive line when, you have offensive tackles maybe starting a little early, or an offensive line that hasn't had a holding penalty called in either of the Super Bowl matchups against the 49ers. But big picture-wise, how important it is for Bosa, Leonard Floyd, and this entire defensive line to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, Marcus, you just centered on the ball game right there. I mean, Bosa and Floyd last week against Seattle, 20 combined pressures. Bosa was spectacular when you're on the rewatch. He causes every problem, every quarterback hurry. It's always Nick. I mean, he really dialed it up this last week. And they've got Wanya Morris and Jawan Taylor. And Wanya Morris is not 100%. Taylor, I think led the league in holding penalties last year. Obviously didn't happen in the Super Bowl, surprise, surprise, but even though he bear hugged him a couple times. But yeah, Niners' advantage, I think, is right there. I think Bosa can win. I think Floyd can win. I think they can put some outside pressure on Mahomes. And then, okay, now you've moved him off his spot. Now he's on the move. Now you got all sorts of other problems. But I think it starts there. If he stays in his spot all day, he's going to beat you. If you move him off his spot, he may beat you. So I think it definitely improves your odds if those guys show up big.
He just freaking beats you, is what he does. And he's done it 4 times, and we've had Fred Warner quotes and on that and all. They want to beat this guy. Wrap it up here with Larry Krueger, who you can see, by the way, if you follow us on YouTube or Twitch. Maybe you won't be able to hear our 80s Friday or 90s Friday, but you can follow him on YouTube and Twitch. He's right there. And then, Larry, just a little bit on Brandon Ayuk and playmakers for the Niners. I mean, he has not had the breakout game. I don't know if you feel like the contract, all the holdout in the summer has made it awkward. If Brock's not finding him, if he's not getting separation. He did have the big game against Arizona, I believe. The numbers were there. But I don't know. Are you still waiting for Ayuk to be that $30 million guy?
I mean, I'm a realist, and you don't get to the level of the highest level of the NFL and then playing your best just because you want to, right? So he put in a ton of work last summer. He was incredible last year in camp, making all these catches. This year he wasn't there. He didn't look like he was in shape. He looked gassed when he hit the practice field. That's to be expected. He's rounding into form, and I think we're seeing it. I think he's going to get a little bit better every week. I expect this to be a bust-out game for him.
Wrapping up our weekly conversation with Larry Krueger on the Umagesson this morning. And Larry, you're down in Santa Clara at 49ers practice every day. What can you tell us about Ricky Pearsall's return to the practice field?
Well, they were very guarded Monday, the PR staff, only giving us about 3 minutes of action. So, I mean, he definitely can jog and give his teammates high fives. I saw that with my own eyes, Marcus. I mean, he literally handshakes and high fives. But I didn't see any of the route running. I will say this. I'm really eager to see practice today. Why? Or whatever we can see today. Because in May, when Purdy and Pearsall were, on the practice field together in the OTAs, they were starting to look like Stafford to Cooper Kupp. I mean, they were really in sync. And now they've done field work, even though they haven't been in games. So how much have they done, and how in sync are they? There's potential that Ricky can hit the ground and be that weapon in the red zone that can gain separation and make a few plays and really help them. So I'm eager to see how much kind of momentum that whole connection of Brock to Pearsall has right now.
All right, Larry, and then finally, we opened by talking special teams, kickoffs and field goal. We don't know who's kicking Sunday. It might not be Matt Wright. His shoulder might be banged up. It might affect his balance. I don't know. Anders Carlson got signed. They had 8 kickoffs and only 1 touchback. I mean, this actually could be a problem on Sunday.
It is a problem. And, I had a guy who, was there watching Seattle in the warm-ups send me a text before the game. He's like, Krug, watch out for the return tonight. Wright's kicks are all going short, and they're kind of flat, and there's not a lot of time there. I mean, the whole thing is geared towards kick it through the back of the end zone and put those guys on the 35-yard line. And the Niners now have a kicker that can't put it through the back of the end zone, so they got to make sure that their coverage units are on point. Because, I mean, we all saw Laviska Shenault bust one, but he almost busted one early. So, I mean, that's going to be a key factor. Will it be Anders Carlson, who's on the practice squad, who was just signed? Will it be Matthew Wright? All I'll say is, man, you don't want any part of the Niner kickers. They will hit you.
And then they'll go down in a heap.
They will go down and miss 3 weeks, but they will hit you.
Oh, man. All right, Krug, always fun talking Niners with you, buddy. We love doing it every week. We'll listen to you every night at 6 o'clock, bro, and have a great Santa Clara visit. Be good, bud.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
Don't forget the little people, Murph. Now that you're gone big time national, don't forget us little people here.
Who are you again? Who is this? I'm sorry, this guy's breaking up. I don't get him off the line, guys. Get him off the line.
Get him off. Get him off.
Larry Krueger. They're not booing, ladies and gentlemen. They're saying Krug. All right, we'll react.